Well, let's start with the early 90s, which was kind of a dark time for monster toys.
Yeah, early 90s, I mean, people didn't have a lot of money to spend on it. I mean, there wasn't a big push for Universal Monsters. Yeah. So that industry was just dead.
Yeah, after the 80s, after the Remco toys kind of died out, just nothing happened. Nobody had the license, nobody had the official license either to produce the actual toys. So what happened was a company named Uncle Milton in like 1991 took the old Marx monster toys that we talked about in the previous panel. These are actually from the 1960s. These are two original ones. And they actually have markings on the bottom that say Marx toys, and they're dated, stamped 1963. That's how you can tell the originals. So Uncle Milton acquired the molds. Marx went out of business. And this company redid them, but they made them all glow in the dark, which was just, a kind of a cheesy little gimmick to try to push these. But the problem with these is it can really compromise the sculpt. I mean, you can't see a lot of the detail in the face.
It's just so white.
It's just kind
really
of
want that
washed out.
glowing material.
Yeah, the plastic was cheaper. It was the glow plastic. So, and again, you can tell these are reproductions not only because of the glow, but the stamp. You're not going to see that 1963 mark. So obviously, these are nowhere near as valuable as the original 60s ones. And the 60s ones, also note, they also came in orange too. So if you see it like a teal or an orange, that's original. Check the date stamp on the bottom, 63. So again, it kind of laid dormant.
Yeah. We had a couple of companies. We had Playco Toys and Telco Toys.
Yeah.
Make some action figures too, but they were kind of cartoony. They had like huge heads, big hands, big feet. It was almost like a parody of them.
Yeah,
and they didn't sell at all.
The sculpting was just really subpar on a lot of those. And articulation, really, up to that point, hadn't been more than 5 articulations. So we're just talking about head, the arms, and the legs, just like the old Star Wars figures. Nothing had really...
There's 5 points of articulation again.
Exactly.
Yep.
Then tell them what happened in 1997.
97, that was the big boom of the Universal Monsters. It was the U.S. Postal Service that came up with postage stamps of the classic monsters, Frankenstein, Dracula, Wolfman, Mummy.
Yes.
So they had those.
They didn't have Dracula yet. Did they have Dracula?
I don't know now. Okay.
They did have Dracula, but they didn't
Okay.
make the toy of Dracula because they didn't get the license from Bela Lugosi's estate.
That's right.
But they started with those stamps. And then, in conjunction with that, Hasbro was able to get the official approval from Boris Karloff's estate, so they were able to do Mummy and Frankenstein, and then launching Junior's estate, so they were able to make a Wolfman. So these are the first officially licensed, they had the likeness of the actors in the makeup, the first official figures ever made.
Yes.
97.
But as far as the licensing goes, it was such a hot property, people wanted it. So what happened was, let's go back in time to that other panel we did. We talked about AHI.
Yep.
Azrak Hamway International.
Azrak Hamway International.
I.e. these things.
Yeah.
Okay. Quite primitive. But then they eventually branched out to be Remco.
Right.
Remco was actually underneath the banner. We know the Remco, the 80s toys, which we raved about the last time.
We love those.
We love these things.
So those are 1980.
Yeah, these are from the 80s. Yep. But
So
then in
70s,
97,
80s, and then 97.
1997, Jakks Pacific, which, again, I said we all know as they make the wrestling toys.
Wrestling.
WWE, TNA Wrestling.
Correct.
They acquired that license. So they were starting to put them out too.
Yeah.
So we were getting a huge boom of monster toys in 97.
But it's interesting that all 3 of those companies eventually all merged together, correct?
Yes.
Which was pretty cool.
Yes.
So they still have the monster.
The lineage there,
and
yeah.
The face sculpt on that first one is actually lifted from one of the Aurora model kits from the 60s, which is crazy. They literally lifted that sculpt and installed that. So again, 97. Then we had the first wave, or the first set, there was a 3-pack. It was a box set of those monsters based on the postage stamps, and they were 12 inches, just like this guy, made by Hasbro, who did all the Star Wars toys back in the 90s as well. So they had Mummy, Wolfman, and Frankenstein in a window box, and that was the only way to get them, those 3 in a box set, and it retailed for what? 35 bucks or something like that.
But at the time, that was a lot.
Yeah, that was a high-ticket item back then. But they only had the license for those 3.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that thing goes for about 50, 60 bucks. If you look for it on eBay or
the vendor table.
Vendor tables, yeah. I didn't see one out there. I kind of wanted one to display for the panel. But so then that was the first wave. So you got those first 3. Then it went on to the second wave. And then what came after that? It was this guy,
That's right, Creature from Black
They
Lagoon.
made the Creature. They made the Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay.
And then they went back and they repackaged the 3 that were in the one box set. They packaged them
Just individual.
singly
Yeah.
in window boxes. So you still had another chance to get those as time went on. Then they changed the packaging to a tube-like packaging. So they made an Invisible Man. They made the Dracula with the mustache, which I hated that because they still did not have the license for Bela Lugosi. So the mustache Dracula.
We were seeing like Christopher Lee versions.
Yeah, all kinds of wacky.
Everything but him.
Yeah, all kinds of wacky ones. And then they had they did make a Phantom of the Opera for this series, but he was the internet exclusive. Back then, they actually had an internet exclusive on.
It goes back.
Hasbro.com.
Phantom and the Creature.
It's all you will see that trend in monster toys from the very beginning, even back to these guys. The Phantom and the Creature are the rare ones to get, and even today, it's still happening.
Mm-hmm.
So then that wrapped, and then they made a Lon Chaney Jr. as Karis, the mummy figure. So you had 2 mummies in that series. You had the original Karloff one, and then you had the Lon Chaney Jr. one. And that one was also the internet exclusive for the final wave that Hasbro did in the late 90s. So then that went away. So then there was a 2-year gap, really, of official stuff. But in between that,
we had some things that came out.
Todd McFarlane. Todd McFarlane
McFarlane toys. Again, he was hot off of doing his Spider-Man run. Mm-hmm. He did the creation of Spawn for Image Comics.
Yep.
His artwork was just so detailed.
Yeah.
And so he just wanted to spin it off into a toy line. So he was doing Spawn and things that kind of branched off of Spawn.
He was really well known. If you see his art, it's pretty recognizable. I'm sure a lot of you guys know. It's just very organic. Do you have it?
Oh yeah, I have a mint and package.
So he decided to do his own take on the monsters.
Yeah,
this was like
giant blister pack.
Yeah.
And again, we always complained about him in his scale.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not 3 3/4 inch. It's not 6
What
inch.
scale is this? He created his own
I
scale.
really don't understand what he was thinking.
We
for
like
scale.
things to match. We either wanted 3 3/4 or 6 inch. That's what we want because
Yeah.
they fit in with our other universes. And then when you throw something like this, it's like, oh, I can't
doesn't
wrap
fit
my
in.
mind around it. It irks. The OCD collector in me really hurts.
Yeah.
But when I first saw these guys flip it over, I just saw the photos, and there was no way to tell at the scale. There wasn't a lot of stuff online, there weren't any shows talking about this stuff. So when you just saw these still pictures in a catalog, it didn't really say what scale it was. You had no idea. So I'm thinking these are 6 inch. And then when they came out, they're like, "Brr." I'm like, what the heck is this? And I mean, these talk about a choking hazard. Look at these little things right here. I mean, if you inhaled for a sneeze, you'd choke on that thing. It's so tiny.
You would open these up and something go flying
Pieces.
out. You'll never find it again.
You'd open up the blister pack. Well, there goes Frankenstein's brain. It's on the floor, lost forever. But they were still cool. I still liked them, and I did buy the whole set.
It was interesting interpretations.
Yeah, interesting. It was. You could still see some of Todd McFarlane in it, but it wasn't way over the top yet that you couldn't tell what the heck you were looking at. And eventually, he did kind of go a little too far with some of his monster stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what is this? There's no semblance of Dracula left in this. But he started with Series 1, which included Frankenstein, Wolfman, Dracula, which we have here, and the Hunchback, which was a weird offering. Usually he comes later in a series when they're running out of the main monsters. They're like,
that's
throw
when you
a
go
Hunchback.
to Hunchback, Invisible Man, Jekyll and Hyde.
Throw a mutant in there.
Kind of the secondary one they would go to.
Or put a coat on Frankenstein, put a furry coat, and son of Frankenstein. But yeah, so that was Series 1, and then I actually like Series 2 better because it had a really nice Phantom of the Opera, and I think I have it loose somewhere, but I don't know if I can grab it. But it had the opera box, it had his organ, it was real cloth curtains, which I love when they use real cloth.
And it had a chandelier that would drop.
It had a dropping chandelier, which was a nice action feature, so that was really detailed. And then the Mummy came in Wave 2 as well. And that was surprising. Usually Mummy would be Wave 1. So here's what the Mummy looked like. And again, he came, and they all came with 2 figures too.
Yeah.
So they were essentially 2 packs.
Like we had this one, Frankenstein and the Doctor.
And yeah.
The monster and the Doctor.
Right.
But again, look at the Doctor. He's like,
yeah, he's all hunched over. and
his interpretations were just kind of out there.
Yeah, and I think initially Walmart stores wouldn't carry these because they came bloody and stuff. And back then.
And if you look at like the Wolfman one, there's like body parts.
Oh yeah,
some guy that he just
the victim.
dismembered.
There's
this is awesome.
Yeah, there's a victim that comes with the Wolfman. You can literally rip his arms off. One, you can take the bone out of his arm, and it was awesome. And wasn't the Wolfman, his jaw was hinged? He could chuck a piece of have the guy's arm hanging out of his
pieces
mouth.
of him in the mouth. Yes.
Oh, it was fun. That was really fun. And then the tree was actually hollow, so I take mine just when Wolfman was done eating him, he'd stuff the leftover parts up the tree. Have a snack for later. But so yeah, here's what the Mummy looked like, and it had an opening sarcophagus, which, man, I wanted an opening sarcophagus since I was like a little kid, back in the Remco days.
Right, but it's too small.
Well, yeah. Well, actually,
Well, I'm just saying in general.
Yeah. I mean, for this it works, but yeah, for the Remco, I'm talking about for the 3 3/4 Remco.
Okay.
This would be a little too big for him, but it would still kind of work. But just the fact that it opens, I love it.
Okay.
And then it comes with it, and then it comes with this kind of sphinxy statue-looking guy.
Anubis kind of guy.
Yeah, Anubis. I never really understood his function. I guess he kind of guards the mummy while he's asleep. And then you had this two-headed bendable snake, which you could pose and stuff and just kind of stick under there. And then he had came with like Egyptian accoutrements, like he had his little jars and little body parts and stuff that you could put in there. But again, just very stylized and not super articulated.
Right.
No. So they only did 2 series of those, and then he went back and did a later one, in '99. This
Larger
time
scale,
he raised it to 6 inches, which was cool. We were happy about it. But what I was talking about earlier about it being so stylized, like Dracula had an axe hand or something, and then and instead of having standard monsters in the wave, he threw like a voodoo priestess. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, that was the last one of the wave.
Yeah,
voodoo priestess.
Yeah, who was that? What? I don't know what he was thinking. So I didn't buy any of those.
But anyway, those and these were fun. Worthless, guys.
Worthless.
You
so
can
when
get
this
these
fell
on
on the floor
eBay
earlier,
for
I
like
was
$10 to $20 tops.
in package.
Yes,
even
mint
still
in package. You cannot get any money for
Yeah.
those. Because it was just no saturation of just weird stuff.
Here's the thing with McFarlane stuff. He raised the bar.
Yeah.
The reason we have awesome sculpting and awesome articulation is because he really raised the bar. He basically gave us articulated models that had never been done before, and it made all the other smaller companies around, or larger companies rather, around him have to really raise the bar and match that quality and detail with sculpting. And he actually started using the 4 Horsemen, which we know today, which do a lot of the Masters of the Universe sculpts and a lot of the big toy lines that we love. But his stuff is just worthless. So sorry if you have some of this stuff.
90s McFarlane stuff.
Yeah. Throw it in the Toys from Dollar. Give some kid a suburb to
Sell it
them.
cheap.
They'll love that. They'll love that. Now this is when it gets good. To me, this is like the height, the spike of the 90s, because we're still going into like 99, 2000 with Wave 1 of these. So, Sideshow acquired the license. This was unprecedented because this was the first time that one company acquired all the licenses for all the classic.
Because everybody else stopped making them. It was just Sideshow for the longest time.
And the good thing about these two, even though with their high points of articulation and their high sculpt value and the really big size, these were available in retail stores. You could go into a Toys R Us and buy these. And I remember my girlfriend at the time, she lived in Tampa, and I lived in Orlando, and every time I hang out with her, I'm like, we gotta hit the Toys R Us, because I want to see if your Toys R Us has any of the rare ones. And I don't know, because that creature, would you do the same thing? Anytime you're in like a weird part of town, it's like, check the toy store. Yeah, I call it foreign toy stores. Yeah, it's the foreign market. It's like you're hunting on different ground. And it's like if you're in your retirement community, all the people aren't going to buy toys, so you go in there. And no, like I'm talking really old, like in the 80s and 90s retirement community, they're not going to buy action figures. You go in there, and it's just like they're brimming off the shelves like fresh fruit, and you're just piling them apart. You feel like you're robbing the place. There's so many great toys.
I thought you were calling you. It's like, I'm in the middle of Brandon, Florida.
Yeah.
I found everything.
I'm in Eustis. What's that? I don't know, but they have really good toys. So yeah, these I love, and I ran all over the place looking for these.
And they were very inexpensive for what they were.
Were they like $12.99 back then?
Yeah.
$9.99, $12.99, depending on where you were. But they made 3 in each wave, and this was wave 1. And as you can see, the package really evolved. It got better, I think. It was kind of just blank and stark. It had the Universal Monsters logo here. Actually, this was the very first one I got. This very mummy that I'm holding right here. I eventually went back and got one to open, but yeah. This was like my first one. Awesome. He started it all right here.
Couldn't be able to open that one.
No, couldn't be able to open. But the problem with these packages, the cards are so big, they kind of get beat up. I mean, I take pretty good care of my stuff, especially the black and white ones, with all this intricate cutout work along the side of the card. It's really hard to keep those really mint and crease-free and stuff. But yeah, so they started out Series 1, Mummy, Frankenstein, Wolfman. Your standard 3, your main 3 that you're going to want, there they are. And it was awesome seeing those. Then they moved on. Series 2 was Lon Chaney, Fan of the Opera, Bride of Frankenstein, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. And that was the rarest one. That's the one I found in that Tampa Toys R Us. And that was so hard to find. I couldn't believe it. He was like in the back of the pegs, too. Like, okay.
There's only one.
Creature! There was only one.
Yeah.
There was only one per case. There was always one per case of them. Like, the creature! My girlfriend's like, yeah, whatever. I don't know.